All right, we should be live on LinkedIn, on Facebook. If you're seeing this on your feed, then you'll see that I've got a very special guest with me today who I'm excited to actually share with you guys. And if you're seeing this, we're just going to be diving into a podcast in just 1 second. So we're going to be recording another episode for the Remote Coaches podcast. If you're not aware of the Remote Coaches podcast, it is basically a podcast dedicated to online health and fitness coaches and actually personal trainers who want to become online coaches, where we dive into various different topics and strategies. And you'll see me actually bringing on guests like Kristin to speak about delivery and getting results and really just delivering an amazing online service. And so I'm actually very excited to bring Kristin on today to speak specifically about how she gets results with emotional eating clients. So this is her area of expertise. And she's got an amazing group, by the way, with over 6,000 members called the Breakthrough Emotional Eating Group. And then she's also the author of a book, When Food is Your Drug, which is a book that has helped her actually build her brand and also helped her provide value to her audience. So she's doing amazing things in the industry for a lot of women. She's got a ton of experience and she's someone that I really respect and I value her expertise. And I'm hoping that each and every one of you who's either listening to this live with us today, if you are, let us know in the comments. But if you're listening to this back, I hope each and every one of you gets some value from this, because I know we're going to be diving into some really good stuff today. So Kristin, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here, and the respect is absolutely mutual as well. So thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So I want to take a moment to kind of set some context here as to like why specifically you're working with emotional eaters. And I know you've been very public and honest and authentic about your own journey. And I think this is one of the reasons why you've been successful in this space, is because you connect so well with your audience for obvious reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But can you kind of just share with us how you landed on emotional eating clients as your kind of ideal clients and the people that you serve?
Sure, absolutely. So I started my business in 2017. I had been a school teacher for 17 years, and I had never trained anybody. And so I decided I was going to leave teaching and I was going to do online, and was not a trainer. I became a trainer and then was immediately going to go online, and kind of tried the health, I would say the traditional nutrition and exercise route, and business wasn't going anywhere. It wasn't happening. And so I went to a business conference and they really asked me to dig deep into what did I really want to help people with. And I was knee deep and had been knee deep in my own emotional eating since I was probably 7 or 8 years old. And just through a course of events, just decided that that emotional eating, what was very close to my heart, was something that I needed to help other people with. And I was still battling it myself. I was still trying to deal with my own eating and my own issues as well. But that really helped when I decided, okay, we've got to help other people. I know there's things that I can do to help myself, but what can how can I help others? And so I really started to escalate my own recovery, which I had been in recovery for quite a long time. But I really started to escalate my own. And then that just kind of translated into me starting to work with specifically with emotional eaters. But I will tell you, it was scary at the beginning. It was scary to have to go online and change my group and tell people who had been in my life for years that I was an emotional eater, and they had no idea at all.
So this is a journey that you've actually been through yourself. And I think this is kind of testament to your ability to actually resonate and get results with your clients.
Right.
Did you find it hard though, putting yourself out there so vulnerably? Because you mentioned obviously you had to like share this publicly that you were an emotional eater. Like,
Right.
what was that experience like for you?
Oh, it was terrifying. It was terrible. And it was terrifying also because I decided at the same time that I would write my book. And so I had to talk to my parents about, like, I was going to share things that went on in our house related to food that were a direct that directly impacted me and impacted how I felt and impacted me as an emotional eater. Um, and it was great because my mom was totally supportive, and my mom was like, yeah, no, you people need to know about this. And she said something really poignant that I incorporated into my book, and that I also tell anybody that I'm talking to, my clients that I'm talking to about emotional eating, is it's not about blaming anyone, and it's not about blaming parents or caregivers, because everybody does the best they can in a given situation with the information that they have. And so it really was, it ended up being a really positive thing. But initially I was very uncomfortable with having to be that open. But now it's just, people just know that about me. And now it's just, now it's become, it is, I'm proud of who I am. And that's one of the things that I try to help my clients come to, is that realization that this is a part of who I am. It's not who I am. And it's something that now I wear. I could have taken it and had it and felt like it was done to me. And instead, I feel like this was something that was done for me, and that I've always been destined to have this issue to then be able to help other people.
That's a really nice perspective,
Hmm.
the way that you're looking at it now. And I imagine you didn't always look at it like that.
No.
And
Mm-mm.
it's probably changed over time as you've come
Right.
to terms with um like the situation and understood it more, because it's a complex
Yeah.
subject, so to speak. Emotional eating, it's not this simple thing
Right.
for anyone to understand. And I think this is probably why a lot of women, and I think men, are affected by this too. When it comes to emotional
Absolutely.
eating, it's not just women who suffer
No.
from it. It's also men too. But you specialize in helping women, correct?
I do. I do. I have had male clients, and so I know that that is something that I definitely, that it goes across. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're male or female. The issues are still the same, and how I help people works on men and women. So it does. But right. But I specifically market to women. Yeah.
I think it's going to be very interesting, actually, what we're going to discuss next, because, like, I'm curious about this too.
Hmm.
I know you and I have known each other for
Hmm.
a few years now, and
Hmm.
we've obviously worked together in various different capacities.
Hmm.
So I have a general understanding of what you do, but even I don't really know where your delivery is and how you're actually getting your clients results these
Hmm.
days, because I imagine that's evolved and it's changed and
Oh,
you've tweaked
absolutely.
and you've
Hmm.
improved and perfected the process,
Hmm.
so to speak. And for anyone listening who is maybe like in a weight loss niche, so to speak, helping people lose weight, it's
Hmm.
probably very different to how you approach things, because you
Oh
have to
yeah.
be careful,
Hmm.
because of the fact that you're dealing with someone who has this emotional relationship with
Hmm.
food.
Hmm.
And so I'd be curious to know, like, what does your process look like when it comes to actually getting results with your clients? And like, what are you actually focusing on as a goal and result, without turning it into something that's actually going to negatively affect them? You know what I mean? It's like a
Right.
fine
Right.
line that you have
Hmm.
to walk.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely, I focus on helping people acknowledge and address and learn to manage, because one of the things that I learned when I was in therapy was that my particular issue, my issue with emotional eating is very strongly correlated with an addiction. And so it's not something that necessarily goes away, that you ever get rid of. It's just a part of you that you have to embrace, as opposed to push away and try and avoid. And so one of the things that I really try to deal with my clients first and foremost is looking at how they feel about themselves. Because I will tell you, emotional eating has, and everybody in my group, this is the kind of the tagline in our group, is it's not about the food, and it never is. Emotional eating isn't about food. It's about everything that comes before you get to eating. And so it's the feelings you have about yourself. It's your feelings about your own self-worth, your value, your uh, whether or not you deserve to lose weight, whether or not you deserve to have a good life. So we really go way back and start looking at, how do you feel about yourself? What do you believe you deserve to have in your life? And then we kind of unpack that first and start really building a foundation the first thing I work on with people is affirmations, is positive affirmations, and getting people to journal their feelings and getting people to write things out and get them out of their head, and so they don't have all of this mind garbage going on all the time, because that then interrupts their ability to be able to make good choices for themselves. One of the things I always say is that when we don't feel good, we don't make good choices. And so
Mm.
it's not about always being positive, but it's about recognizing that life happens, but that doesn't mean that you change as a person. Like, you don't become a bad person because bad things happen to you. We're always good people. But so many of us were raised in and it's just kind of the way, school goes. And it's the way people, most people raise their kids. It's like, you everything is kind of conditional. You're expected to do certain things. And if you don't do certain things, then you're not good. And so what people start to correlate that with when it comes to food is, if I don't follow my plan, I'm not good. I'm a bad person. And then they just kind of dive into that of like, I'm a bad person. I might as well just eat everything. And then the negative self-talk happens, the burying themselves in their own negativity, and that spirals and it just compounds. I mean, I'm sure any trainers out there will, if they talk to clients, they'll say like, gosh, it's been 3 months and I've gained 25 pounds in 3 months. And it's like, oh my gosh, how do you gain 25 pounds in 3 months? Well, you do that because you get in this vortex of the downward spiral of the negative self-talk, and you can't pull yourself out of it. And so one of the things that I would say to any coach out there that's listening to this is, if somebody comes to you, if somebody is walking around, and this is my personal belief, doesn't necessarily mean it's true, but it's my belief and what I've seen in my experience, is if somebody is carrying extra weight, it's really not it's not as simple as they just eat too much food. There's something behind why they're eating more than they need. And it's usually to distract, to soothe, and to make them feel better because of some other aspect of their lives. No one wakes up in the morning and says, I want to be overweight, I'm going to eat a lot today. People just don't do that. There's always something else behind it. So I believe that's true with anyone who's needing to lose weight. There's always something else. So I wouldn't, if I was a trainer, I would always, or a coach, I would always go into it with the idea of, we're going to look at food, we're going to look at nutrition, or look at food, look at exercise. But we've got to look at lifestyle, and we've got to look at how they feel about themselves, because that's really going to play together, and it's going to impact how any coach is able to get results for their clients as well.
Yeah, this is really interesting and very different to how you would maybe approach just a general weight loss client, where you'd put
Mm-hmm.
them in a calorie deficit pretty
Mm-hmm.
quickly to help
Right.
them with losing weight. But you're having to approach it in a much more delicate way. And
Mm-hmm.
I imagine there's probably going to be some coaches listening to this who at some point in their journey or their career are going to come across an emotional eating client without realizing it. And
Right.
then they're going to find themselves in this situation. So um, if we can go a little bit further on this in
Mm-hmm.
terms of if that did arise, like someone does come into contact with an emotional eating based client, like what
Mm-hmm.
would be your recommendation to that coach of what they should do next?
Sure. Well, I would tell you the reason, the way they'll kind of discover that they have an emotional eater is, you can give an emotional eater an amazing meal plan. You can tell them exactly how many macros and the calories and all of the things, and have the exercise, and they'll probably go all in on the exercise. The food, there will there you will constantly come up with a wall of like somebody who's not losing weight, but they say they're doing everything they're supposed to be doing, but for some reason they can't stop eating at night, or they have a hard
Mm,
time, they have a hard time resisting that. Well, somebody brought donuts in and I just couldn't say no. And, or they're able to do it for a certain amount of time, and then the wheels just come off and they have a huge binge. And that's just because they've held it together for so long, because they don't want to disappoint you. One thing to know about emotional eaters, and I never like to make generalizations, but in my group, I think everyone, and the 6,000 people in my group, we all pretty much agree that emotional eaters are people pleasers. And so we want to please. So if somebody hires a coach, you're going to get a level of compliance, And there's also going to be some shame, and there's going to be some hiding of things. So you'll be able to see it because the progress won't be happening as much as you think it should be happening. And that's because they're going to have a really hard time dealing with the restrictions and the deprivation, because that's what really, that's one of the things that I deal with and I take away from my clients is we don't deal with, I don't give meal plans. I don't tell them what to eat. I don't, there's no food is off limits. They can eat anything they want. But what I teach them is I teach them how to think about themselves, how to think about how to go into a meal to make sure that you're very, very legitimately hungry. And that how do you stop eating? That's probably the hardest thing is people know when they're hungry.
Mm.
Some people do, but also there's other people who eat because something happens and they're like, oh my God, I'm so stressed. I'm hungry, but it's an emotional hunger. It's not a physical hunger. But teaching people how to stop eating, that's probably the most challenging thing for any of my clients to address is how do they can recognize when they're hungry, but they can't, that mechanism to stop eating is much harder. And so I give them all kinds of strategies, but it also is a lot of thought work that they do about themselves and about their circumstances and what they make it mean that they can't stop eating. And so we kind of break all that down.
This is really interesting, Kristin, just listening to this and
Mm-hmm.
hearing how you explain this process. Like even myself listening to you speak about this, I'm having a deeper understanding here in the moment of like
Mm-hmm.
how like we're all different and we approach food and
Mm-hmm.
our feelings differently, and it
Right.
leads to different reactions and they need to be managed in different ways. And
Right.
I'm hoping that everyone listening to this as well are kind of comparing it against maybe what they're doing with their clients or what they're
Mm-hmm.
offering their clients or what they're experiencing from their clients
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to that coaching relationships.
Right.
But I also picked up on something that you mentioned about like you don't really add a lot of restriction. Like they can eat what
Mm-mm.
they want.
Yep.
There's no meal plans. There's
Mm-hmm.
no My Fitness Pal, I don't think,
No.
counting
Mm-mm.
calories.
No, no,
So how
they plan their meals, but they plan them ahead of time. So they plan their meals, they plan exactly
Mm,
what they're gonna eat, and then they commit to that's what they're gonna eat. I am a believer 3 meals a day with no snacking in between. And you need to
mm,
have at least 4 hours between. So it's almost like it's like mini intermittent fasting. They have to have at least 4 hours between their meals so their body starts to tap into fat cells. So I definitely have the mechanisms to promote fat loss and to get weight loss to happen. My ladies drink a ton of water. And try to get good sleep and that sort of thing, try to reduce stress. But it's the 3 meals, and that's where I can get away with no restrictions. It's 3 meals, no restrictions. You eat whatever you want to eat, but you only eat if you're hungry, and you stop. They have a scale, a 1 to 5 scale. You never want to go past a 3 in your level of satisfaction. You pretty much almost always want to try to leave food on your plate. And the way we kind of phrase it is you want to end a meal feeling like if an emergency happened and you had to run to get to help somebody, you wouldn't be like, oh, stomach cramp. Like you wouldn't not be able to do that
mm,
because what my belief is and just based upon my own experiences and based upon my own research is our bodies will naturally let us know how much food we need. And, in the beginning, I just get people comfortable with that. As time progresses, we then start to look at, okay, how can we make better nutritional choices? Because what I need for my ladies is I just need them to kind of rein things in, going from eating whatever you want, from eating Cheetos to eating salad. From a brain perspective, your brain will fight that every day of the week. Your brain will tell
mm.
you you will never get by on salad, and that's boring, and no, you need to eat the cupcakes. And so I do a lot with brains, excuse me, with our brain and how our brain works and how to manage your thoughts, because your thoughts are what lead to your emotions, and your emotions then lead to your actions, and your actions get you the results that you either want or don't want.
It sounds like a very like intuitive way of
Mm-hmm.
like knowing when you're full.
Right. Exactly.
Like you're training your mind
Mm-hmm.
to to almost like react the right way
Mm-hmm.
and create the right behaviors, so to speak, when it
Right.
comes to your relationship with food.
Right.
And so it's not about like counting the calories, so to speak.
No.
It's about being intuitive with
Mhm.
when you're feeling hungry, when you're feeling full, or when you're like overeating, so to speak,
Right.
and just training that intuitive muscle by the
Mhm.
sounds of it is what you're typically doing with your
Right.
clients.
And it takes, and it, and for people, one of the things, and I would say this to any, any coach out there that's listening, my program is that we do not, this is not fast results. It is over, and they know they're not on a diet. I don't phrase this as a diet. I tell people this is not dieting, because I'm a believer that dieting doesn't work. I've done every single diet known to mankind, and I know for me it just got me deeper and deeper into my control and my like death grip on food and death grip on how is this impacting my body, and my all my thoughts were consumed by food. And that's another thing. If you have somebody that you're working with who just seems to be so obsessive about their food, and what they're eating and how they're eating, and they're almost panicky about it, there's an unhealthy relationship there with food. Trying to get people to think about food as fuel is just rewriting that script, especially here in America. Just because I think a lot of people are really geared towards food. In America, we seem to be very, very geared towards food, and so it's just trying to get people to change their relationship with food. But the relationship with food is based upon, it comes from their relationship with themselves. And so I guess I would say I'm much more of a from a therapeutic standpoint. I am a certified life
Mm.
coach. And so so I have a life coaching background. I have that coaching background. And so that's kind of where I come from. It's not in any way traditional, to what anybody else would, what most other people do.
In terms of like the coaching relationship and the length,
Mhm.
you mentioned that it's not a quick fix, right? It's not
No.
something that you can
Mm-mm.
fix overnight. And
Mm-mm.
obviously, working with like behaviors and the
Mhm.
mind,
Mhm.
sometimes you have to undo or rewire a
Yes.
lifetime of bad
Mhm.
habits and
Mhm.
behaviors. And
Mhm.
so that's not something that you can do straight away.
Now,
I'm curious, and I'm sure people listening are too, is like, what's that typical length of relationship that you embark on with your clients? How long do you typically work with your clients for?
right now I have my main group. So I have a signature program, that
Hmm.
I take people through. That's a 3-month program. I can sign people on anywhere from that 3 months to, they can go 6 months, they can go 9 months. I have somebody right now who's on her ninth. I think she's probably in like a 9 month, span of my signature offer.
Hmm.
But I also have, from the signature offer, they can then move into a membership, and the membership group that I have, I have people there since it started, which is over a year. And they are in no way, they now have developed relationships, they've developed friendships. They're a little, a little unit in and of themselves, and they're not going anywhere. So I mean, I imagine that for these ladies, because they now realize that, yes, most of them have lost, I have people who have lost, up to 60 pounds. I have people who have done my work, but then have opted to do weight loss surgery, which I don't have any issue with, as long as you get the help from me, from the relationship with food. Weight loss surgery, I don't have any issues with that. So I have some people who are upwards of 75, 100 pounds, because they've done weight loss surgery, but they also are doing the mind work along with it, and the relationship with food issue. Um, so they're all over the place, but their commitment to understanding how this not only affects their body and their relationship with food, but it's their relationship with themselves, and how they feel so much better about their lives in general. I mean, I've had people like leave jobs and like actually like get jobs that they really want to have, because
Mm.
we talk so much about like, you know, I also believe that, like, if you're eating all the time, there's something else in your life that's not good. If food is the only pleasure you have, we got to talk about that. We've got to figure out, and we talk a lot about what brings you joy in your life that's not food related. And you'd be surprised how many people don't know anything that brings them joy that's not related to sitting down and having a meal, or baking for somebody, or cooking for somebody. So It's much deeper.
it's actually very interesting that you mentioned that as well. And it sounds like you're changing people's lives more than just their weight, like in
Oh
terms
yeah.
of like helping them maybe change what they're doing on a
Hmm.
day-to-day basis. But
Hmm.
you said something like super interesting about like if someone is not getting like pleasure or passion or
Yeah.
fulfillment in what they're doing day to day, then they
Hmm.
turn to food as almost like a crutch or
Hmm.
a place where you go to get pleasure, so to speak. And
Right.
even myself, I
Hmm.
found myself do that. So like
Hmm.
today's a good example for me. I wouldn't class myself as an emotional eater by any means. I don't want to discredit people who are actually
Hmm.
suffering with this, but like we all have this like emotional pull sometimes, or these
Yeah.
like cravings.
Hmm.
And like I've experienced that today. Like last night, I didn't have a great night's sleep. I
Hmm.
woke up, didn't feel great. And I notice when I wake up, I don't feel great. My mood is down, my energy is down, my probably testosterone is down as well because I
Hmm.
didn't get a good night's sleep. It affects those things.
Hmm.
And then I get like sugar cravings
Oh
or I get
yeah.
like carbohydrate
Hmm.
cravings, you know. And so
Hmm.
the first thing I'm thinking when I wake up, I'm like, okay, I didn't have a good night's sleep, but I'm craving like a bacon sandwich, for example, and I'm going to get
Right.
one of those today. That's going to be like my pleasure
Uh-huh.
because I don't
Yeah.
feel 100%. And so I'm
Right.
turning to food as
Hmm.
an emotional
Hmm.
stimulus
Hmm.
for pleasure, so to speak. And so
Right.
I think at every level, whether we're like all the way on the spectrum to where I am, we
Yeah.
all to a degree go to food for this emotional support sometimes.
Right.
And I can see why people would really suffer with this if
Hmm.
their lives are pretty dark, you know, or
Yeah.
they really hate what they do. And you must come into a lot of situations where you're experiencing those type of people or they're in these very dark places.
Hmm.
I'm curious, maybe no one's asked you this before. How does that affect you dealing with all of these people who are going through all this stuff, considering that you yourself an emotional eater
Hmm.
and you said it yourself, almost like offering this therapeutic service.
Right.
Do you
Hmm.
feel like you're sometimes taking on the burden of your clients? And if so, like how do you deal with that?
You know, I actually don't look at it that way. What I look at it as is I feel like when I'm helping, when I'm working with my clients, and I'm learning more about me too, and I'm learning about myself. So I feel like I get stronger as a recovering emotional eater as I am helping people. And I really feel like if I had not chosen to move and to morph my business in this direction and choose to serve emotional eaters, I would still be knee deep in
Hmm.
my own disorder. I think that for me, because, and this is where I know that there's that connection of everyday joy. It's like I could not be happier than when I'm working with somebody, when I'm helping somebody, when I'm, whether it's text messaging, whether it's, it's having a call, whatever it is, my the joy I have in my life by running my business is because, and it's not just because I'm helping people, but I'm legitimately doing what brings me so much joy. So when people ask, like, oh, where do you know, where's your joy in your life? Well, I have a dog. I love my dog, and he's amazing. But I also have this thing, this business that I run that gives me so much pleasure because I know I'm able to help people, even if it's just a tiny bit for them to have a tiny little realization, that gives me so much joy. And so that's why I will ask people, like when we start talking about things, I'll say like, well, what do you think about your job? Like, how do you feel about, tell me about your marriage. I mean, I will ask those questions because things aren't isolated. They're not in boxes. Everything comes together. And so sometimes it's having to unpack those things that people don't realize, like, oh, that is an issue. Yeah, that is an issue. And they don't see that it's going to impact their eating. But then when they realize it, they're like, oh yeah, I need to figure that out. But yeah, no, it has helped me. I don't find it as a burden at all.
I'm actually glad to hear that
Yeah.
because I imagine it could go one of two ways, you know,
Sure. Oh
where
yeah.
it could be like a big burden,
Hmm.
having to hear those conversations or unpack those
Hmm.
difficult situations that people are going through. But it's super interesting to see that the opposite is true for you.
Right.
And actually it's giving you life and it's
Right.
giving you purpose and it's giving you the opportunity to discover more about yourself. And so
Hmm.
it's a great win-win of a
Right.
relationship that you have with your clients.
But I would also recommend that and this has always been true with me for as long as I've known you, and as long as I've, that we've been in contact with each other, and I've had my business. I have always had a coach. I've always had a coach myself. And so for any of you coaches out there, if you don't have a personal coach, whether it's a life coach, whether it's just a business coach, somebody that, and Alex will tell, I mean, I will completely own that, I have cried many times with Alex on the phone when he was my business coach about things that were not related to business. Some of them were, but a lot of them were related to how I felt about myself. And so, if you don't have somebody else in your life that frankly that you're paying to take care of you, you need to, because we take a lot as coaches, we take a lot on, and we need to have somebody that we need to be able to offload that to other people. So absolutely, I see my own coach. I see a personal coach once a week. And we talk about, whether it's stuff in my business or whether it's my own personal stuff, but that's how I end up taking care of that as well.
Amazing. Really good advice. And I've thoroughly enjoyed just listening to you share this amazing, I would say, superpower that you have, because you're in a unique situation
Mhm.
where you've walked the walk.
Right.
You really understood this and you've come to terms with this and you've not shied away from this.
Mhm.
And you spend a lot of time like facing emotional eating so that
Mhm.
you can change the lives of other emotional eaters. And
Right.
so I really respect your journey and your commitment to helping people. And I hope that people listening to this, whether you're working with emotional eaters or not, have actually found some value, have had some insights, have learned something new about how people behave when it comes to food. And
Mhm.
hopefully that helps you with impacting your clients' lives too. So if you did
Mhm.
find this valuable, guys, and you're listening to it, just give it a thumbs up, give it a like. Let's just show some appreciation to Kristin for actually spending some time with us today and
Loved
sharing
it.
some really good insights with us, because she does amazing work and I know she's very busy. And so, Kristin, I really appreciate you. Hopefully everyone got some value from this, and we will see you on the next episode of the podcast. Speak soon.